back. My brother's master plan had turned into a master failure. The breadcrumbs had vanished. Goodbye, poof, see you later. My brother looked confused and then mortified and started to explain, see what had happened was, and I just stopped him right there. And I says, what had happened is you just went and fed all these goddamn birds, you ignoramus. Oh, and the birds, they just sang and chirped what sounded like, thanks for the meal, you cocksuckers.
Once upon a time.
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 So the play is called Grimm Women, and I wrote it based off the Brothers Grimm fairy tales, off of 5 of them. And I took the 5 stories and I put them in modern day. And I really kind of went back to the original dark, gritty roots. I think that people forget they're done so often for children because they have great lessons, but what kind of gets airbrushed out of them is that they were really dark stories. So we went back to really exploring the dark roots of the stories, but we also, by taking them into modern day, things got crazy. So like when you have something like a Hansel and Gretel story, you know, you need somebody to be the witch. And I'm like, who would make a house out of food? So Paula Deen. Paula Deen's the witch. So that's really kind of the basis for the story. It deals a lot with the search for romance and for love, and also just a search for yourself. So I think that the themes are really universal, and by taking stories that are hundreds of years old and bringing them into modern day, I think it does say something about the universality of the human experience.
And our story exploded in the press, all over the TV and the internet, and me and my gran got pretty famous. Vera Wang even made me a custom purse with a wolf on it so I could walk around and be like, don't fuck with me, bitches! And as an added bonus, I was given a lifetime supply of gluten-free Eggo waffles. I play Red, who is the modern-day version of Red Riding Hood, and she is a crazy cool stoner chick that gets into a fight with a guy in the woods dressed up in a wolf costume. And she loves her grandma. She has a really close relationship with her, and she's crazy. She's young and she's living her life, and she wants to get it right, but she makes some mistakes along the way. But see, that's when I realized something. Now, the only thing that I like more than being high out in nature is watching crime shows when I'm high, because it makes me feel like I'm Harriet the Spy. And let me tell you something, that dude was totally on America's Most Wanted. Like, I'm not even kidding you. And he was one sick motherfucker. Like, he would go and he would kill old grandmothers and their granddaughters dressed up in a wolf costume because he was one of those furries that you hear about on Strange Sex. And then after he would kill them both, he would eat them. Like, what kind of fucking sick, furry, fantasy, fetish fuck is that?
I'm playing Punzi in the play Grimm Women, written by Brandon Minokian. And my character is a modern adaptation of the Grimm fairy tale of Rapunzel. And basically, she is caught up in a tower with her mother, who keeps her locked away, and she meets someone who brings her out of that life. And she starts to realize that life outside of her little tower isn't as great as she expected, and her happily ever after doesn't necessarily turn out to be as happy as she thought.
What I could see out my window was trees and the occasional owl. My mother was the only one allowed to leave the tower. She said getting a ladder would just tempt me to leave, so she made me get the longest white girl weave in all the land. And she would have me lowered against the tower, and she would climb it to go in and out and out and in. And well, at first I was happy because she was all I knew of the outside world. Well, and the trees, and the occasional owl, and my long, beautiful hair that was sewn to my head. But then he came along, and
I play Briella, which is
everything changed.
Modern adaptation of the character Gretel from Hansel and Gretel. In our twist on it. Gretella rather, is a very loud and outspoken character. She finds out that her father and her evil stepmother are plotting to leave her and her brother out in the woods. So it's basically how her and her brother overcome this, and eventually she ends up owning a world-renowned hair salon, and she actually finds her success through that. And as far as Grimm Women goes, it's, especially in Gretella's character, there's a lot of nods to modern day pop culture references, which was really cool as well.
We stood there in silence for a moment. And then we switched into Kirstie Alley mode faster than Lance Armstrong on his doped-up bicycle. And we ate until we could eat no more. Until suddenly, the door, which was made of a giant strawberry frosted Pop-Tart, in Christ's name we pray, opened. And this little old lady came out. And don't you know, it was Paula Deen!
I play Cindy. She's like the modern version of Cinderella, and she has very, very, very bad luck. She is a very unlucky girl with a big heart, and she means so well, and she tries so hard, but she just is not a lucky girl.
She had these two stepdaughters, Tara and Clara, that she named so they would rhyme, and they were what you would call, what is that word again? Evil. They had been chewing Nicorette since they were 12 because they thought it was trendy to try and quit smoking, and worked as professional models. From the day they moved in until the day I finally left, my stepmother would consistently tell me that I would never be beautiful enough to be a model like them.
And his story is based on The Princess and the Frog. And Rex is a kind of your big dreamer, has a lot of hopes in life, puts all of his eggs in one basket kind of person, and just he believes in fairies, and he believes in all these like magical things that really exist, and he's just this boy that just can't seem to cut, no one can cut this kid a break, and But once upon a time, on this beautiful spring day, I was sitting with my back to a large oak tree when all of a sudden this tiny frog just landed in my lap. It just sat there so still one could mistake it for a toy, but I could see it breathing. It just sat there staring right into my eyes. This was surely it. All my believing in fairies and romance, this was my fairy tale moment. Ancient cultures across the world, with no connection to each other, had all told stories of humans being trapped in the bodies of animals. How could they all have stories of the same thing if there was no truth to it? Somewhere in my memories stood the story of a man trapped as a frog, searching for the love of his life, searching for me! All I had to do was kiss the frog and you would become my prince! Is that what I should do, little frog? Shall I kiss you? Will you become my prince? Ribbit. That was frog for yes! So I cut my hands and placed them in my lap, to which the frog prince crawled right in. I held him eye to eye, took a deep breath, and kissed him.
It's just been so cool working with this cast because it's a bunch of different people from all different backgrounds. You have Briella coming from a TV background, Daria coming from a film background, and then everybody with their different strengths theatrically. And we all have just come together really organically and just really just vibed, and it's been so much fun. And I just get so excited every day that I get to go to work with these people.
Once upon a time.
Once upon a time.
Once upon a time.
Once upon a time.
Once upon a time.